Yeah, we're doing a LeetCode problem. What it is find the longest substring without repeating characters in a string. So if you have like this ABC, BB, the answer would just be ABC because you can get the longest one is length of 3. Because like if you start from ABC A, then the A repeats, so you can't take it. So then if it's all B's, um, you repeat this. The B is pretty simple here. So length is 1, and then this one it's 3 again because you can't have WPP or PWW. You can have WWK. You can have WKE, but then it stops at W. Um, my first, so the big overview is first like the naive approach with brute force. Like a lot of times you just think brute force because that's our brain thinks. You just start at this. I can switch to red here. What you do is you just look at A. All right, that's in it. A, so then that's 1, that's 2. Do you have any repeating in this one? Nope. Let's go to the next one. ABC, that's the 3. Is anything repeating? Nope. Go to 4. Is anything repeating? Yes, A is repeating. So then we backtrack and then we set our longest one to 3. And then what you would do after doing that, and then you just move on to the next beginning index of 1 and just do the same as B, BC, BCA, BCB, but then it fails it. So then it'd be 3, but it's not bigger. So as you can see, then it's the same thing. You check here, 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 good. Here, 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 same thing. So, but that's brute force, and that's not as good. You can be a little bit more clever and efficient with the program. Another way I thought was just to, which it does take a hash map. You just find all the indexes that these are all in. So you have like a hash map of A, and then it would have a dictionary, and it would say 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that would be the 6th spot. Then you just figure this out for the rest of the characters too, and then you iterate through these and find the biggest difference between index points, because what ends the biggest length is just repeating. But that way didn't work it quite as well either, and then I ended up also figuring out kind of a similar situation with, or a solution with a hash map too, is that I looked it up a little bit. You should always see what the longest sub is, and you just kind of use a dynamic programming approach, where let's just kind of work through it. Where you always want to take just because you're always looking in yours, assuming that one letter you don't know when it's going to repeat. But if you do find a repeat, you just can move on and skip. So that saves the brute force, because you have always kind of computed and measured things already. So the dynamic approach would be something similar to this. So you just loop through the whole string length. So that's why we have a string length. And then your longest sub, you keep track of that. And then you have your hash map. And then you have your counters I and j. And then just while loop through the whole string S. And then you build the char map as it goes along. So the first rendition of this, the first step or first iteration would be: does char map have a key? If it does, if it doesn't, then you add it for it. So it would be A. Whoops. So then you would add A, and then it would be 1. So you can see, yep. And then you want to take the max, this max thing, to the longest sub, so it'll be 0 in this case. Here's kind of the tricky, weird, not so clear, intuitive part. Then you just take the max of if it's the longest sub, and you compare it to you minus, find the difference between j and I, and plus 1. The plus 1 is just because with the indexes you want everything to the right of it. So this would be both 0 and 1. So this way you have 0 and 1, and the max between this is 1. So now the longest sub is now 1. And then this line of code right here would map to this A1. And then you just pretty much increment J. So then the second one, you go to the second part of, so that's doing the A. So then you move to here. And B is not a char map yet either. So you would, oops, sorry. That's a bad colon here. And then you would say, so now J is 1, or yeah. So 1 minus 0 is 1, and plus 1 is 2. So now we set this to 2. So as you can see, yep, so far our longest one is 2. That makes sense. And then we increment J again, which would move us to C right here. And C is not in it. All right, so, and then this will get incremented with this, because it'd be 2 minus 0 plus 1 is 3, and 3 is bigger than 2. So, and now here kind of the cool part comes. Now you get to A again. So now we hit this if statement. We haven't hit it yet. Now we hit it, and J, there is a char map, and the I is going to equal the max between what I is, which is 0. We haven't touched it yet. So this one's 0 the first time, and then whatever how much it is that the char map is. So, and it's 1. So the max will be 1 now. So now we have I, oops, is equal to 1, right? As long as sub, or this char map, we get this 1 from here. So 1 is bigger than 0, so not 1. Now we do the same thing as longest sub is now 3, and then J is 4 minus 1 now, plus 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3, plus 1 equals 3. So it's still the same thing. No, actually, it's like 0, 1, 2, 3, yeah. So 3 subtract 1 plus 1 is just 3. And then the longest sub is already 3, right? It's right here, longest sub is already 3, so we don't take the max. So it's essentially starting over again. And then you would do the same thing to here. You pretty much the same thing, because B is going to be equal to 1, and you're still going to get 3. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking over it again, but and then you keep adding. So this would be 2 again. Then you have to, or this would turn into 2, and that would be end of that iteration. Then you move on to the next iteration, and you check. Nope, 3 and 3, and so this will go to 2, and this will go to 2, and then you go all the way to essentially, but you won't find anything else, a bigger one out yet, or a bigger longest substring, and then you'll terminate right here, because J will be less than the length of the string. So, and then what was the runtime on this again? The runtime was, I should just calculate in my head. I think it was n log n, or log, yeah, yes, it's log n, it's linear, because all you gotta do is pass through the whole thing, and you're doing constant work on each iteration when you go through, because it's the main loop is the while loop. You go looping through the whole string, and you're doing constant work on each iteration, which constant time. So when you have a big O of constant time on constant work, that's a big O of n. This just equals big O of n. Yeah, it was kind of frustrating, but yeah, it's just practicing this. The brain just thinks or brute force and naively first, or naively is the brute force way. But then there's always these little shortcuts in dynamic programming of like clever brute forcing, which you can perform better, because the original brute force, that means you'd have to iterate through this whole string, like this whole thing, this whole thing, this whole thing, and then you can see it gets kind of exponential. So, but yep. Oh, then I suppose I should show you. Yeah, so if you run the code here, it just returns the biggest length. So this would be 3. So it's ABC. And then I think if you do this one's 5, because you have the repeating M, so M 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one should be 5. Yep. So